Man, everything's technically glitching as we get this thing started today. Facebook didn't want to start, and then my camera didn't want to start this thing. But here we are. We've made it to another wonderful interview. And I see, I should start the show off with Ahoy Chatters. Maybe I should have Stingray record that because he gets that in there at the beginning of almost every single show. So, and I don't know if it's the maritime theme with the characters that he likes or not, but it could work. Or maybe that might sound a little bit like SpongeBob. Either way, we'll have to think about that one. But it's interesting. I see Todd Sheffer, who we will be interviewing today. I forgot that he's always had James Bond as his avatar here on YouTube, and we're going to see a couple James Bond artworks in his collection today. So we might as well get him in here and find out what's this thing with James Bond. Hey, Todd.
Hey, everybody. Nice
Welcome
to
to
be
the
here
show.
finally. Yeah, great.
Yeah, well, you have been here before, but we've never done. We've really
Yeah,
not a lot about you. We've
yeah, it's
always
about
had
me this time.
Exactly. It is all about you. We've got you here for 2 hours to talk, but you are at Hakes. You're hanging out. This is
I
not your
am.
home.
The office is home away from home. I actually spend more time here than home usually. So, but I'm surrounded by the things I like. It's lots of collection stuff in this room. So,
Does
yeah,
does Hakes encourage everybody who has their own like cubicle or office space to just load it up with stuff, or does that just happen naturally?
it just happens naturally because of the nature of us. So most of us here are collectors. My room is, I mean, it's jammed with action figures, some older toys, or some model kits in here, a little bit of art. So yeah, I like everything. That's the problem. I've been collecting ever since I can remember. So it's always something to have your interest and put on the shelves.
Exactly. So I had to, go full screen here because I wanted to make sure that there was in fact something James Bond in the background, and there is. I see there's like a little standee there with Roger Moore, if I'm not mistaken. I can't tell for sure. But what else do I see in the background? You got that Linsner action figure case. I recognize that artwork, right? The thing that's next to Spade.
Yeah, that was a special, custom Migo type thing. I mean, it's licensed. It's something that Plaid Stallions did. So that's pretty cool.
Awesome. And you have a cat clock hanging on the wall. Who would
Yes,
have guessed?
they are very temperamental. That one is not currently wagging its tail. You always need fresh batteries and perfect balance, and I get tired of fussing with it.
So you don't tell time by that one. All right. Well, I'm gonna see if there's anything else I recognize back there. Kazra said you have absolutely zero Modocs back there. Is that true?
Um, I have Modocs, but not in the office. I do have like a big figure, so it's just not here.
All right. Well, see, Kazra, there's somebody else out there that has picked up a statue or two of Modoc. Well, no, that's cool. You don't have a whole lot of extra room there for anything on the shelves or on the walls, so that's always fun to see.
No, in front and beside me, I mean, it's wall to wall. It's a shame the windows here because that would be shelves full as well. So I have to have a limit, I guess.
Well, maybe you should just ask for Alex for a bigger office. Just tell him to swap
It's
with you.
probably best to keep it this size. It would be just too much stuff here.
Oh, all right, all right. But all right, well, we were just talking, before this thing started. Might as well get the Hake stuff out of the way. Everybody knows that you work for Hakes. You've been on several previews that we've done, and a few
Yep,
recaps that we've done, and
it's going on
uh,
15 years.
about 15 years, right? So you've
Yep.
been with them for a while. And what's your main role there? I think we've talked a bit about that in the past, but why
I
don't you tell me what
really
you do?
kind of do a little bit of everything. I do descriptions. I do a lot of research. I put the catalog together. The whole thing is pretty much me doing the layout part. I have help with, we have a photographer here. She does a great job. She is busy with everything else, but the catalog I kind of grab and go with now. So it's a lot to do, but I can almost sleepwalk through it as long as things cooperate. So yeah, we just keep going.
Right, and I was surprised. I know you have the July auction coming up, but you're still laying out the catalog today.
Yeah, literally, it's going to be done till the beginning of next week. It's got to be out of here. So I mean, we get the files out of here. The catalog comes in like a week. That's how short the turn is. It's really quick.
Well,
And
I don't
yes, I
envy
am
you with
the
that.
Hake Swiss Army knife here.
So you work late nights at least three times a year, when the catalog's got to come together.
I'm usually here. I'm here on the phones when the auctions are at night. Usually, I can run a pretty standard day. Last weekend, I was in both days, just playing catch up with some of the stuff that was going on. We just had sections that had to get done, and we have some people. We had people at shows. We have some people vacations, that kind of thing. So, when you have this continuous rotisserie of auctions going now, when someone's gone, you feel it, but, again, we get it done. So, and, I like what I do.
That's the most important thing, right?
Sure is. Yep.
So speaking of, I mean, why is this a job that you enjoy? What got you into comics, pop culture, toys, music? I see on the back wall. So you've got a pretty eclectic batch of things that you
Yeah,
and double oh
honestly,
07 on top of everything else.
I almost like every category of everything. There's something, I like history. Like comics and toys and art. I've just, my whole life, I was an only child, and, I contented myself, and I collected comics when I was young. Unfortunately, sold that collection when I got into muscle cars, when I was able to drive, and then that collecting fell to the wayside for about 4 or 5 years. Then I was back buying the books I sold. I bought all the John Byrne X-Men off the shelf for 35 cents, and then later I'm buying them all back for $25. But
Hmm.
that's okay.
So
So
what
yeah,
were your muscle cars that you owned back in the day?
I had quite a few. I had two 60s Mustangs, two Camaros. I had a Trans Am. Um, yeah, just I really enjoyed the old cars, and it was a lot of fun, and that stuff wasn't expensive then. Now it's a rich man's sport like most things, but I had
Yeah.
my fun.
I once owned a 71 Plymouth Roadrunner. And I
Oh,
loved it.
that's a
It
great
was a
one.
boat, but I loved it.
Sure. Yeah,
And I
that's
think
when
it
they
only
got
cost me about
longer. Yeah.
$500.
Yeah. So, again, one of those uh Rolodex of worthless information. I back in the day, I could tell you every year Corvette as soon as I saw it, every year GTO, Mustang. Like some of them I can still pick out, exactly what year it is just by, looking at the cars. That some of that's getting lost now because I just haven't been involved in it. But yeah, it was just, a lot of fun. My first car, I had a 65 GTO. And then when I got a little older, I was going through some old pictures, and there's a picture of my mom and dad, and I'm a baby, and they're sitting in lawn chairs in front of my dad's 65 GTO that I had no clue he had owned one. So it was just like a weird circle thing that it was the same year. And, like I said, it was a lot of fun. You always did, burnouts, and, we had a circuit where you cruised and did some quick, little block to block stuff. So yeah, it was fun.
Awesome. So it was in your DNA, I think, even though you didn't know it.
Yep, exactly.
Now, did you ever own a Firebird after, like after the Smokey and the Bandit movies? I mean, did you?
I had a 76 Trans Am for a little while.
Yeah.
Again, that was, it was fun. Yeah. In those movies, cars were just, that car was the star. I mean, I am a giant Burt Reynolds fan, but that movie, the car really does it. So yeah.
Wasn't the beer? Coors wasn't the attraction. It was the car.
Yep.
Hey, I get it. My dad went out and bought gosh, his was like a copper colored one, so it wasn't black, but it was like a copper colored fire,
Yeah.
and it was cool. I was
Yep.
proud of him.
Well, they really, again, when you get into that older stuff, just the styling, and if you look at the old advertising, I mean, Dodge, Plymouth, man, they had some great graphics. You know, it's just so 60s, and it was really just gratuitous performance. You know, cars and smoke rolling off the tires, and you know they incorporated, you know, the actual Roadrunner came down the side of the car on certain years, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was just a good time. You know, and you know, I was a kid in the 70s and was driving in the 80s, so you could still get the cars. I imagine back in the day, it was pretty magical if you could go order something like that. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. I did not have my driver's license till '84 either. So,
yep.
yeah. Yeah, here we go. Alberto's asking, is this Car Plus or Calf Plus? All right, we'll go back over to the Calf Plus side of things, Alberto, to keep ourselves focused. But it's always good. We're talking about how we got started and things. Now, so you know, you saw the films, but so do films play a big part, you know, in your kind of journey through, you know, to get to comics, or were comics always part there? You mentioned selling comics to buy your muscle cars. So there was certainly a period of time where you weren't collecting comics.
Yeah. Um, I, uh, I got comics. I got into comics, you know, pretty young, early 70s. I think one of the first comics I got was, you know, one of those 100-page giant Justice Leagues. It's funny, I just actually sought that issue out because I didn't have a copy of it. And I'm like, I want that book because I just so clearly remember that, you know. And I did comics all through the 70s into the 80s. And then toys came in '89 when the movie Batman came out. So that movie kind of changed, you know, like it was pretty magical when you saw that. So, you know, then action figures started coming out. They were kind of, you know, the next level. You were like, wow, they never made anything like this. This is really neat. And then I kind of got into comics and toys, and then art kind of trickled its way in. Unfortunately, it didn't trickle in early enough where art was really cheap. You know, I probably walked by stuff, you know, but 90s, you were just buying every, you know, whatever the hot comics were, and, you know, just enjoying that. And they did all the gimmick covers back then, you know, chrome foil and holograms and all that. So, yeah, I think it just kind of, a lot of that leads into the next thing. Movies, I've just always been, you know, James Bond is sort of I collected James Bond toys for quite a while. I have still quite a bit of 65 Bond stuff. I'm a Connery guy. I mean, I like them all. They all have their merit, but I like the old, like, really spy stuff, and the Connery feels like that. It's sort of that the right timing. Cold War
Mm-hmm.
was a real thing, and spies seemed like a really real thing. The gadgets were cool, and so again, that just kind of carries through. I don't do too much of that anymore, but art. When I see something that's fun and something Bond related, if I can grab it, I'll pick it up. So yeah.
Yeah, Nick Forrest is probably saying his top three right there. You had Goldfinger, Skyfall, and
Yep.
Golden.
Yeah, they're all great. Goldfinger, you know, that was really, I think that's really where it hit a fever pitch in the 60s. They said that people were like lined up around the block, and they ran theaters 24 hours a day. And yeah, it was really Bond fever, I guess, back then. I wasn't quite born yet, but close. So.
Nope. Yeah, neither was I. But so then, you know, so how does this lead into comic art? I mean, when did you pick up your first piece of OA?
It's funny. We had a local show about a half hour away. It was one of those great, you know, the old time. You went to the hotel and it was a room and it was all comic dealers, and an artist was there, John Hebert,
Mm-hmm.
and he was doing X-Men Adventures. And the first piece I picked up was a title splash, and it's got Wolverine. It's on, I think that's on my calf somewhere. But that was the first thing I picked up, and you know, it was, I don't know, maybe $100, maybe. So that was like the first thing I remember picking up that was art. I have a Robin miniseries cover that I think I have in my list for tonight. I was at a comic auction where they had it was in a barn, and it was like a 3-part auction. It must have been a huge store, and that art was in the auction, and $30 for this great cover by Tom Lyle, and I still have that. So yeah, so that's kind
Auction
of
in
where
a
the art
barn.
kind of started creeping in, and then um, and again, I was on CAF for a long time, and a couple years ago, I'm like, man, you've got to like start getting art scanned and getting it up. So I think I just kind of crested 300 pieces a couple weeks ago. So I actually found 2 pieces tonight that I dug out and scanned and put up tonight. So I
That
still have.
you knew you had them, but you hadn't posted them to the site yet.
Yeah, I probably have quite a few stray pages at home, but they're just whatever pages. There's not anything super special. They're kind of just people on pages doing things from books that aren't particularly important, but it's still original art, and it's stuff that I have in my collection, but that I haven't posted. So
Got it. So we're
and
talking mid-90s though. You did start before the
yeah,
2000s. Yeah,
yep,
putting up.
and then it ramped up in 2000s. Where I was kind of pursuing it a little more seriously and picking up some things. So yeah, and
Mostly at
working
shows, or
here.
were you doing them at shows primarily, or where,
Um,
what was
you
your
know,
choice?
shows, eBay. I bought stuff from some auction houses and things too. Um, just looking for stuff in your price range. So yeah, I've been able to put together, quite a few things that I like. If you have, you know, I have champagne taste in artists. The guys I love are the guys not in my price range. And I'm an X-Men guy. One of my big '90s things was, I put it together the whole run of X-Men, 1 to 600, I think, is wherever they actually stopped numbering years ago. I had everything. I did sell the one a few years ago, just money, but and then art wise, my artists are kind of on your list. I mean, you're not going to run out and grab a John Byrne page of X-Men, but I do have some John Byrne pages of art, and I have a couple that have some good stuff. I ran across Jim Warden along my journey and had gotten a couple pages from him several years ago. So I have a couple Byrne things and a couple pages from other artists that I got from him. I've dealt with Albert. I got a couple James Bond covers from John Cassaday. He was one of my favorites. What a loss. I was just gutted, as were everyone.
Hmm.
So I just kind of, follow the artists. And Neil Adams was, during the pandemic, was doing a live stream all the time. So that was what I was doing. I was watching everything he was doing. I got a couple great head sketches. He was doing the boxes with signed mystery stuff in books, and then
I got one.
you'd get a head sketch in that. And I
Hmm.
tried to pick out stuff that I really really enjoyed, and I'm glad I did. Again, horrible, what happened, but it happens.
Right, right.
So,
Well, the cool thing about all that was we got to know the creators, a lot more throughout that
oh
period,
yeah, for
especially Neil,
sure.
because he was on all the time, a couple times a
Yep.
week, and that was fun. You got to know his family a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah. His daughters were hosting the show. They're still doing a thing, and
Rich Cirillo was manning the cameras for a
yeah,
while, and it's
right.
like it felt very, very familiar and fun, and yeah,
Sure
I mean,
did.
just getting to know Neil, because Neil always felt a little unapproachable at shows because he was so imposing. I can't say I mean, I talked to him here or there, but I never bought anything from his booth. But get him in front of a camera, and he was very affable, and he would answer even some of the questions. You could tell he'd answered a thousand times before he would do it, and so no, that was fun. I mean, when you had nothing else to do, that was that was the most fun we were gonna have.
Yeah.
With yeah.
It's funny. I got to meet Neil. Oh my gosh, 15, 20 years ago. He was at a Chiller Theater convention in Jersey, which is like a horror convention,
Mhm.
and had a table. I had Neil to myself, like no one was there, and I took one hardcover book, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I would have brought not just I love Neil Adams' work. I would have paid whatever to have all that stuff signed, and I think at the time he was doing it for free, and then if you did more than whatever, maybe $5 an autograph. And I was just shaking my head like, if I would have had an idea. But I got to talk to him for like over an hour. He was
Mhm.
just talking away, and I'm like, wow, am I going to actually have to I'm going to have to move on to continue the show, because I think Neil would have kept me there all day. But it was really a great experience, and I think he's just amazing. I think he really changed sort of the face of art when he came on board. His X-Men, I think, is amazing. The paneling, the camera angles, shooting from like the ant view up on, people running, and yeah, just always a big fan. So,
Oh yeah. I mean, Neil was in my top 5 when we did that X-Men show where
yep,
we had to pick the top 5. Even though he only did a few issues.
I know. Oh my
Same with
gosh,
Paul
if he
Smith.
would have kept going, it's a
Right.
shame.
It is, but he left his mark.
Sure
I did
did.
have Jack Kirby at number 7. He's now up to number 6. If he's
Yep.
leapfrogged Werner Roth finally, who was
Yes.
number 6 in my queue there. But who would be your top 5 X-Men artists if you had to
Oh boy,
narrow that focus down?
it's gonna be hard to rattle them off in a row. Definitely John Byrne. His run, Dark Phoenix Saga, that would be my Desert Island graphic novel. I could look at that all day. It's just something magical. Claremont's stories were great, but the art, I just always was attracted to his art. I love artists that have sort of a tight style, inks that are tight. Like when Terry Austin did John Burns inks, I just think that's a 1-2 punch for me. When people ink him or he inked himself, it's a little looser. It's still great, but I like the Terry Austin stuff so much. Um, Neil Adams for sure. I am a big Alan Davis fan. Again, great expressive characters, great motion. I mean, he just really has an amazing style. Let's see. The last two would be harder. I mean, Paul Smith did a great job. I'd probably throw him in there. And I have a Warner Roth page, so I'll say Warner Roth.
Are you just doing that to get on my good side? But
No, I actually have a page. So
I know
that's
you do.
my
I
that's my
saw it.
one old really cool page that I really stepped up to get. And I got it I got in there at the right time that I could afford to get it. So
Hmm.
that's really kind of magical. And it's from '66, the year I was born. So all that stuff is. And I do like Jack Kirby. I'm not snubbing him at all in my list, but
He'd be in your top 10, right?
oh yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, that's where it all started. I mean, Kirby. I don't. I mean, I grew up with Jack Kirby material. I mean, Cap and Commandy and just so much, and then all that early stuff started with him. So it's fun to look at his stuff. So yeah, he really deserves so much credit.
Right. I mean, pick a different title, like you could like FF, right? I mean, he's probably going to
Yep.
be in top 5 there. It's all about the title,
Oh yeah.
guys and
Sure.
gals.
Sure.
It's X-Men. There's so many other artists to choose from, and his run was so early. Even though he did create, a lot of the the origins of those characters. He was first to draw them and all that. It's still Yeah, there's too many artists to choose from. But FF top 5 for sure. Heck, top 3, I would probably go and say that. But I'd have Burn in there too, of course.
Oh, we'll
But
have a fan club of 2.
exactly, we're gonna make T-shirts and buttons.
That's
No
right.
one,
We
no
can
one
make it
else will
happen.
want. Oh man, yeah, but there's definitely some other. See, Evolvic says John Romita Jr. with Dan Green was one of his favorites. Right, other people have Silvestri. I mean, I think it's a lot about your time period when you're reading the books, and and then I get that. I mean, you didn't even mention Dave Cockrum. He's like my
Oh, geez.
number
Yeah,
2.
he'd have to be in there. Yeah,
I was
yeah.
thinking you were going to say how much you hated Dave's work. You
No,
didn't
no,
mention him at all. You skipped
no.
right
He
over him.
started the new X-Men. No, he's definitely in there for sure. Yeah.
All right, then the easiest, or well, the question everybody wants to know is who is the best leader of the X-Men?
Best leader of the X-Men?
And you can't
You're
say
gonna hang
Professor
me
X.
if I say Cyclops.
No, well,
But
that's okay if they hang you, because then you would be agreeing with
Cyclops.
me if you said Cyclops, so that's okay. Some folks like to say Storm was because she was able to beat him in battle, but I think Cyclops was just having a bad day.
Cyclops was the leader in my time, so I got to go with the guy that I know.
Thank you. There we go. Another vote of confidence for Cyclops, leading the witness. Nick Force agrees too. All right, good. See,
I
and remember
object.
we had Andy Kubert on, who's drawn a lot of X-Men stories, and I asked him, and he even said Cyclops. Of course, he's like, there was no question. I was,
Yeah.
that's the way it's got to be. All right, see, we have plenty of Cyclops fans out there. The whole interview is staged. I don't, Rich, I purposely don't even go into the green room, until like 3 minutes before a show so that we don't talk about anything in advance of it. See, we got the weather conversation out in the green room, all that fun stuff.
Yep.
That's how we do it around here. But all right, that's good to know. That's awesome. But so let me think here. So it's early 90s. So I mean, what's it like? I mean, around Hakes, though, you got to be like tempted by so many different things, right? Because so much stuff is coming through there. You got to see like a unique X-Men item that you might want to get for yourself, or I mean, always being around that material. I don't know. That's like you've got your drugs are all around you all day long.
But when you're the familiarity, it loses that special thing. It's I've held things that are like, so unique, and then we get another one, and it's like, oh, it's another one. It's no, we get amazing things. Luckily, a lot of it's above my pay grade, which is fine, but they're things that, it's really collecting is really not about, you have a ton of money and you can just go out and make an instant collection because all you got to do is buy things. I've been doing it so long, and it's just like a gradual, slow burn. And you have the whole. I remember when oh, there's that. That was so cool. Oh, look, it's cheap. I gotta have that. From the Mark's plastic Vikings and Knights I had in the 70s. I have some of those in my office on the top shelf.
Hmm.
It's just those things that you really remember, and you just really like the stuff. So
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Uh, the toys we played with in the early 70s are very different than the ones that kids play with today. I mean, they don't even, I had the Guns of Navarone set with the plastic army men, right? I
I
mean,
had
wasn't that
that
freaking cool?
whole giant mountain. Yeah, I had that. That was an eBay victim when I got a little older, but yeah, that was amazing. You just the scope of things they did, and Marks was king. I mean,
They were.
those early toys, they did some wild stuff. You just can't imagine they sold it in the stores, but they did, and people hauled that stuff home. Star Wars here, is insane. I have all the figures they made, not the ridiculous variants, but I have all 92. I have, but loose. I like my stuff loose and tangible. I don't want to pay a ton of money for packaging that you have to worry about and things like that. So, you get stuff that's in your range. I was in the Migos. I have all the superheroes that they did and Star Trek and things like that. I collected those years ago. I have all of them. Some are in boxes, some are loose. So, yep.
Awesome. Yeah, do they well, I see some are boxed behind you and some are not. So
Right, right.
yeah, I tended to want to play with them, so I didn't I never thought about leaving them in the boxes. And I can't even imagine having stuff like that
No.
around. At least not down here where it's humid and everything. I can only imagine what that would do to the quality of the boxes and the paper.
Well, yeah, and I mean you're looking at, 40, 50 years old. It's thin plastic. They put it in the attic, they put it in the basement, they moved it around the country. Some of that stuff is just becoming fragile from, just traveling the land. So, um, it's great if you have it, and it's great if you collect it. But and again, I have some stuff in the box on the card, that kind of thing, but it's not something I pursue. Um, so yeah.
No, I don't blame you. So back to the art. So
Yep.
the Hebert was the first piece,
Yep.
X-Men, and that's kind of there was a lot of that around early around seemingly like in the early 2000s, but you don't see it too out there too often. I think a lot of people, like, even though it's like not the guy you'd think of to pick up a piece from, the people who were
Yeah.
buying remember it fondly because a lot of them were reading it first. I think he did even like some of those mini X-Men comics back in the day, if I'm not mistaken. But
Yeah.
what were so clearly you're not just collecting X-Men art, even though that was like
Oh
your thing
no.
for 007.
I'm artist oriented, so I could sit here and say, oh, I love Bart Sears, I love Kevin McGuire. I do. I like all these guys. It's so many great artists. So a lot of times I'm pursuing just getting some variety in artists more than I have 300 Kurt Swan pages. I picked up 2 Kurt Swan pages that I'm grateful I was able to pick up. I think it's great that I actually own 2 Kurt Swan Superman pages. They aren't big, Superman doing his thing pages, but still Kurt Swan art, and they're nice. And so I kind of look at artists as much as titles, and I don't have a side. I'm not a Marvel guy. I'm not a DC guy. I am just a comic guy. I like independence. I like Marvel. I like DC. I think everybody has some merit, in creation of characters. And, I mean, Spider-Man's awesome. Cap's awesome. Superman and Batman are too. I think they all have great titles or great stories that you can enjoy. So, I like that.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So does the Kurt Swan pages, do they have crypto on them? I've heard that those crypto pages are going to be worth a
No,
lot of money.
no
No,
crypto.
that's that's unfortunate. Yeah, I had to go back and look because I've bought a few for my wife Maureen over the years. Kurt Swan Superman page because she's a big Superman fan, and Swan is always they're getting a little less. They're going up in price of late, but they've still always been pretty affordable. But I don't have a single crypto page either. I had to check because I thought, oh, it'd be pretty cool because I know they're in demand now with the movie coming out and
Sure,
everything.
sure. Well, and you run into niche collectors that it's like, I want, crypto, or I want Batmite, or, whatever it might be. People go searching it out. And yes, Marcus, I did like Valiant back in the day. I mean, it's a lot of good Bob Layton stuff in there, and Bart Sears, and, I don't think I have any Valiant pages, but I would buy them if I could find them. So.
Yeah,
And
there's a
again,
few
that was the
Valiant.
hot thing back, when they came out. That was Valiant was everything. People were trading Silver Age great books for, the hot number 0 Valiant title. So, yeah.
Yeah, I missed the whole Valiant thing, right? I was, that was when I wasn't on
Yeah,
comics at all, so I don't understand the fervor around that period, but,
yeah, it's something.
it
I
was
mean,
there, I know it was real.
the old obscure, Dr. Solar and Exo Man of War was really cool. I mean, Bart Sears did a great job on that. I like to show the, last week or whatever, when he
Mhm.
was on. I mean, there's some great art. I was like, but just couldn't quite pull the trigger.
I get it, I still got some here too,
And
but
he had stuff that was, I thought very affordable. It wasn't like it was all, high
no,
dollar
no, it
stuff.
wasn't. Hey, but it was the lead up to Heroes. It's always you
Yeah,
never know, but I hear you, and I mean, Valiant got Barry Windsor Smith to do a lot of work. I mean, that was kind of cool to see. I mean, I didn't know it at the time, but I go back and read through and see some of the stuff there. It's cool. Some of the connections and the creators that did get to work on those. And Bart Sears, I still go back and look at the work that he did there. It's amazing. I mean, he was so talented and is still to this day.
well, and I went to graphic design school, and it was the old-fashioned art school. It was like, fame. It was down in the city. It was a brick building. It was all creative people. So, that was a fun time. And Wizard was doing Brutes and Babes. Well, I was photocopying that stuff out of the books, trying to make my own like guide, because I just thought I just really liked his style. It was so different. You know, the way he did muscles and the human form, I just thought it was great. So, Justice League Europe was one of my must-haves, as was Justice League back in the late '80s, early '90s with Kevin Maguire. It
Mhm.
was a book. It was almost like the Seinfeld of the Justice League, where it was stories about nothing. It's a bunch of shenanigans and Beetle and Guy Gardner, doing goofy stuff, and that might be an issue with no fighting. And it's like it was a great issue. It didn't always have to be like the standard comics you're used to. So yeah,
Right, right. It didn't have to be formulaic to make it be
yep,
a good read or something that was fun. I know I get it. Yeah, number one Marvel fan mentions Wizard was a kingmaker at the time. Well, they certainly
yeah,
made
for sure.
celebrities and gave added personalities to creator names that if you didn't see them at shows or whatnot, these people all of a sudden became a bit more. You just felt like you knew them a little bit more. And
Well,
Wizard certainly.
I think the breakout of the Image crew.
Mhm.
You know, I'd have to mention Jim Lee in X-Men creators. I mean, I was in art school. I was working at a bookstore, and when he started on X-Men, I'm like, at the time, this is the new John Byrne. I'm like, this art and these stories are really different and amazing. And, you know, I have probably 10 copies of every issue because I'd pull them off the rack at the bookstore. They were $1 a copy. And I just thought they were, and that, again, it was great. But those guys really did change the face. I mean, they were the rock stars, the bad boys of the comic industry, how can you not like that time period? Because as someone that was young and an artist, even though I wasn't going into the comic field, you were just like, man, that's cool. It really can happen. I mean, if these guys can do it, that's awesome. That sort of your peer group are making comics their own thing and really doing creator owned properties, and really neat.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, when you saw Liefeld and McFarlane and
Yeah.
the rest of them making it, yeah, I mean, we all wanted to be comic book illustrators if we could, right? I mean, that's what I wanted to be when I went to school. But it
Yeah, I mean,
didn't happen.
I'd see the ads for Kubert's school, and I'd
Mhm.
be like, "Oh, how do you possibly make that happen?" And I could have probably, I just wasn't equipped to try to do something like that. But that would have been amazing, And so many artists have gone through there, and have taught there, and I'm sure it was really an experience, especially when Joe was actually around. Just yeah.
Yeah, that would have been fun. Can you imagine having him be your instructor?
Yeah, yeah,
That would have been awesome.
it
And
would have
Alberto,
been.
you don't have to be the only one who thinks that you're probably not the only one that thinks Jim Lee is overrated for different books. But back at that point in time,
Back at that time,
he was definitely a
it,
focal.
it really was something,
Yeah.
I don't know. It just really changed the way art was being drawn. I mean, how many artists like kind of took on that general style? Everything started to kind of look like Jim Lee, and that was in vogue back then. So,
Hmm.
yep,
All right. Well, so we should start looking at some artwork. Well, you
sure,
sent me quite a few pieces to look at here,
yep.
and but as we look through all of this, I mean, what kind of pieces you sort of mentioned that you're not like focused strictly on a title or character, but you mentioned creator. I mean, are there creators whose work you're still looking for to kind of fill a gap in your collection?
Well, I can do a quickie mail call. I got this. This came last week. This is a wanted page by J.G. Jones,
Sounds right.
and
Wow.
I just thought it was great. Essential Sequential had this, and it's got Wesley the Killer, and then this last panel, which I didn't realize until I looked into it. That is Dick Giordano. He did the flashback story panels in that issue. So you have the Killer and Fox and that really cool flying supermobile. So yeah, that was kind of a fun recent ad, and I love J.G. Jones. I think he just Wanted is really such a great book and series. I've enjoyed his work on other things, but that one, I think that's the second page I have from that series, and I would definitely pick up an additional one or something if I found the right one. So yeah, I'm always open to what you run across. So yeah, that's kind of it. I don't. There's nothing I'm seeking out. It kind of
Right.
finds me. I've always liked kind of. I have every issue of Cerebus 1 to 300, so I was kind of into that independent comic thing, Love and Rockets, and titles in the 90s. Flaming Carrot has always been a favorite. It is just so out there, and I have every issue. I have lots of variants and things like that. I'd love to have a page, but it's just not quite in my realm. But I was able to get a sketch or two, so at least I have something. So yeah.
That's cool. Do you have anything? I know we're going to see, one a piece from one of the from Cerebus, but do you have anything from Love and Rockets?
No, no. Their pages really fly through at Heritage, but they're always just a little bit above my level. It
I don't
would
know.
be an
I've had the same
investment.
problem.
Yeah, and that's always the thing. When you see kind of that page that you're like, oh my gosh, and then you get a couple bids, and then you're like, nope, not going to happen. And that's fine.
Yeah.
I never sour grapes on things I miss because you can't get everything. You know,
No,
I don't think that would
some
be
things
any
are
problem.
always meant to be out of your reach. I mean, it's just kind of how it is, unless
Sure. Yeah,
unless
it seems to be that way. So yeah.
right. It's either that or you have to be willing to give up stuff. Whether because again, I you see Albert always has 5 or 6 pages from Love and Rockets, and they're always just a little bit more than I want to spend. It's
Yep.
just, you have that mentality. But unfortunately, ever since I've wanted a page, it might be like 10 years, they've always been just a little bit more than I wanted to spend. I wish I was at that. If I could go back 10 years, I'd buy 2 pages for those prices.
Sure.
But back then they were a little bit more than I thought they were worth. But you're right. It is what it is. You always sometimes see a piece that you just feel like you have to have, and then it's tough to kind of figure out what you have to do with your collection in order to get those. You have to pick and choose. There was a
Yeah.
Spain Hernandez piece in a recent Heritage auction that I just thought was cool. I had no
Mhm.
idea what the market was. I actually put like almost a $2,000 bid on it, and it went for like $3,800. But I thought 2,000 seemed really reasonable. You know,
Well,
no
and
idea.
as a collector, as someone that, has been in the auction business, who has, dealt with eBay, things have a value of some sort. And you have a spot where you're like, look, it's time to, there'll be another one or there won't be, but this is, some people can just make it rain and they don't have a ceiling, and that's okay. But, and that drives the market,
Hmm.
way up, and some things get out of reach. And again, I don't really have, like I said, I like it all. So I have quite a few uh, Archie pages and a couple Archie strips. Um, Harry
More the
Lucy.
current
I
stuff,
have,
or like, or DeCarlo.
what's up?
What do you have things like Dan Parent, Archie, or DeCarlo, or what era?
No, I actually like. I have like a Bob Montana
Oh,
strip.
Montana. Oh,
I
sure.
like the early. I like the early stuff. So I'm always on the lookout. Sometimes that stuff will go, and you get a heck of a deal. I got a page um, at an auction a couple of years ago, $3, and I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" Next auction, they had additional pages of the story, $200-300, and I'm like, I just got really lucky. So I'll take
Yeah.
those. I'll take those wins.
I don't think I've ever won at auction a page for $2 or $3. So,
Yeah,
Todd,
I was
that's pretty
shocked.
incredible.
So yeah, that was all right.
Wow. All right, well, let's dive
Yep.
into your picks for tonight. And you have mentioned Cerebus earlier, so we get to start off with a piece from that.
Yeah, this was a cover. This was a Mike Berkey purchase. I thought, a great deal on it. And it's got a lot going on. You have that great Gerhard background that takes that high society theme and turns it into disaster. This was Rob Walton ran the Comic Lab project, where they got a lot of different uh, artists to come in and do small stories in low society, and they drew Cerebus different ways. And for the cover, I believe they had, there's a big long story about this online. But I think each artist drew their Cerebus on the cover, and then I believe Dave Sim did the inks on all of them, and then Gerhard did the great background. So I love this piece. I don't know that I'll ever score a actual Cerebus page. The prices just kind of creep up, but this is good enough. This makes me happy. So they did a print of it that I have not been able to track down. There's a color print. I did talk to Gerhard at a show. He said he'd check. I never heard anything. So maybe I'll just have to kind of nudge him again when I see him somewhere. So
Wow, that's pretty cool. I didn't know the background on it. I just was looking at your calf gallery now, reading the description. So you've had this one. Well, it was done in what, 2013? Huh. Well, that's awesome. And the
yeah,
Gerhard background just blows your mind, right?
yeah. OAX, I was able to get. He did small sketches for a good price with Cerebus. I picked, I think, one of those up 2 years ago. Just really happy with that. So
Yeah, Gerhard is one of our favorite people there, right? He's always happy. He's
yeah, he is
always
the friendliest person. Yep, and those are the kind of people you want to chat with and see.
yeah, yeah, he makes the show better, that's for sure. But boy, that's and I assume this is probably like 11 by 17. Is that
Yeah,
the size? Yeah,
yep.
then it makes it even more special. Wow. Let's see here. Moving over to you had mentioned the Robin miniseries with
Yeah,
Tom.
this is the
So
mini series. I mean, that's a great Joker cover. The printed comic had the the hologram card where it says Hollow Art. It did a little bit of resizing on the screens behind him for the printed issue, but yeah, this is just a nice looking piece, and I mean, I got it for a really good price, and that's one of my earlier pieces for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking at the printed version in your calf gallery. So what was the
Yeah.
deal with the card? Was that, or is this or is this hollow card? I mean, how did they? What was that actually printed on the cover?
They did an actual like holographic sticker, and then they put
Oh,
that on the actual book cover. The hologram technology was one of those gimmick things that they really played with back then.
so this was one of those. Even Derek says he bought
Yep.
every one of these covers.
Yeah, they did variants. There's one of the Robin miniseries. I think maybe it was the first series. They did a ballin cover that's just beautiful. They had some good talent on these miniseries, and at the time they were the stories you really liked them. So
Yeah, I missed all the gimmicky stuff. Yeah, that was like the 5-year window where I didn't get to see a lot of this. But
yeah,
no, that's cool. Tom Lyle, I remember he was on the con circuit when I first started collecting. But
yeah, he
you know,
came to my local comic store in the '90s and did like an appearance at like just the comic store here in New York, Pennsylvania. So that was
mhm.
really cool. And he was on the young side then.
Did you pick this up from him or in the
No, this
aftermarket?
was at that auction I went to that was
Oh, that's
almost
right.
all comics, and this was one of the only pieces of art. The other thing was they had a copy of Batman and Me, the Bob Kane book with the sketch in it, and I got that for $35 with a nice Batman head sketch by Bob Kane. So I was just ecstatic at the time because I just thought that was the coolest thing.
Right. I mean, it's kind of good to be the only art collector at a comic barn auction.
Yeah, everybody was focused on the older books, and I was just like, I picked up Marvel Masterworks, like the first 24. I think I maybe paid a couple dollars a piece for them. I still have, all of them on a bookshelf. So, yeah, there were tons of books, and I mean, the stuff was cheap. So I was, I remember going home in my little Honda like this and stuff's like, I had a full house.
Nice.
Yep.
Now, but you were at that point you were still just a collector, right? It wasn't like you were buying them for resale. It's just buying them for
No,
fun.
no. I pretty much collect. I
Yeah.
I don't really sell a ton. I've
Hmm.
sold a few things over the years, but more just this is worth a lot of money. It's just sitting around. I should just turn it into money. So I did that with some of the comics, but
Hmm.
other things I, still have and enjoy. So I don't have, a ton of art on the walls. Um, I have a couple pieces, but a lot of it's portfolios. But I pull them out like every other month. I pull a portfolio out and kind of flip through and look at a different one. It's like what's in here, and I really should organize them better. That's a need to do project at some point where I have like things in the same portfolio. I think the only thing I have together would be my few Mike Allred pages. Those I tried to get in one portfolio so I can just enjoy that. So.
Yeah, I should have queued up those photos. I'll have to maybe while we're looking at artwork, I'll pull those up. But yeah, one of my favorite photos from the first OAX was with you and Mike and Laura.
When
And
they say dreams
my
come
artwork in the
true,
background.
that was a dream come true.
Yeah.
I bought a few pages from Got Superpowers through his broker Simon. Great
Hmm.
guy. It's funny I see him at OAX and it's like we're really good friends and we barely know each other. But when they were there, I was beside myself. I just thought that was finally got to experience that, and I'm so glad. And the pictures were great. We just had a fun time.
Here, I have to show it what I got here. There we go. So are those? Did you pick up? What did you pick up from him at the show?
Nothing at the show. I
No.
got some
Okay.
autographs and things. I had bought a page not too long before that, I think, through the mail. But
Hmm.
no, it's sure I didn't actually get anything. Oh, I think I actually picked up 2 pages, but I picked them up from Felix Liu. So
Oh, really? Like
they were Dragata and
they're
all red.
Dragata, yeah.
Yeah.
What did you get? Like the Dead Girl, or
Yeah,
what was it?
that's that. A
FF?
lot of my pages are from that. I love that series because I love those fringe characters that are in it. I love the original Ghost Rider, and Ant-Man is one of my favorites. So those pages, I'm like, these are the ones I really want.
There you go. Look at that.
Yeah, that was so funny. Yeah.
Oh shoot. Yeah, I should print one of these out and put it up there with the artwork. I have it up on the mantle. I get to look at it every time I
Yeah.
go into the
Wow.
house.
That's
It's there.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love Mike's stuff, and actually, yeah, I've been eyeing a few of those pieces that Felix has for a while too. After a couple years of looking at a couple of them, I feel like I own them, so I should probably just buy them.
Yeah,
So,
I have that same habit. I don't know if everyone else out there is like this or not, but I spend time, flipping through, Anthony's stuff all the time, and you're like, there's that, oh, that's still there. That's still there. And then you go in and it's like, oh, that's gone. Why didn't I buy, But it's just, I think it's the collector thing. You see it all the time. You're like, oh, one of these days I'm going to get that. And then when it's gone, then you're like, sour grapes. I wish I would have bought that. But yeah.
yeah, but then it usually winds up on cap, so you know where it went to. But
Yeah.
yeah, we all
Yeah.
know that feeling. But yeah, that was a fun show. I mean, a Marvel fan mentions the Madman lunchbox. Those were
Yeah.
awesome.
That was
He
cool.
actually he shipped me everything that he had, and I had a case of
Oh,
Madman
wow.
lunchboxes in the house for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's
I got the yo-yo, the Madman yo-yo. I thought was like such a cool gimmicky thing. I have the balsa wood glider.
see, I regret that. The balsa wood glider, and the first time I had Mike on,
There it is.
he sold the art to the balsa wood glider on a show, that I did with him. Show it again one more time, just so everybody can see it.
Yeah,
Because this
sure.
one side have Madman on it. What's on the other side of the wing? I can't. Oh, yeah, you can't see it, but yeah, it had Madman on it. But I know, I was like, son of a gun, if I could go back just a year and a half, I would buy that off of him since we offered it up live.
Yeah, and that was back in the Tundra day. So
Hmm.
yeah, when Madman came out, I was sucked in, and I was trying to buy everything he did comic book wise, and I couldn't even keep up with that. It was just there's so many variant covers and things, and I have a lot, but I just I can't get it all. It's hard to
Right. Well,
even
it's cool.
track it all down.
Yeah, you are definitely, showing off the fact that you are a fan of the indie books, like you mentioned, Love and Rockets earlier,
Yep.
Madman. Uh, I mean,
I
you
mean,
name it.
Dan Klaus and
Cerebus.
all that
You have a
kind of
Dan
stuff.
Klaus page?
No, no, no. I'm just
Oh,
saying, like, I have a lot of the books and things like that. I'm a fan of that, but that art has, when these people catch and everybody, kind of jumps on, it's gone. You're not gonna touch a page there anymore. But
yeah. No, that's
kudos to
true.
the people that have it. We had a awesome cover. It was a horrified face, and the guy's got a breaded rat on a stick, and he's getting ready to take a bite out of it. That cover was so cool. I just thought that was amazing. I think I have a picture. I think I got a picture of me holding it somewhere. So
You
just
have
to
to
have.
do that.
I went out and bought the book though. I'm like, I got to at least have the comic that was the cover too. Because I'm like, that's just so neat and funny, and yeah, great stuff.
Well, see, that's awesome. I do, yeah, Marcus is right. I do have a Dan Klaus piece, but I had to go way out of my comfort zone to buy it. I mean, which wasn't even. I mean, when you look at those pages, it was like $6,000, but which isn't a ton, but it's a lot more. I would have rather spent four, instead of six.
Yeah, I was at a local collectibles place. It's not too far from here a couple years ago, and they had one of the hardcover books. I'm not sure which one off. Maybe it was Death Ray.
Mhm.
It's signed by Klaus on the inside, and it was like a really nice signature. I'm like, wow. And it was the price you pay for the book, not the price you pay for a signed book. So at least I kind of got that.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
Yep.
All right, let's see here. Next up, let's switch over. Here we go. So, Mark Wheatley, correct?
Yeah, Mark Wheatley's been around for a long time. He's a really nice guy. The couple times I've interacted with him, and you just don't see a ton of his stuff, sort of being put out there. So this is a cover. It's Vampirella Frankenstein Mobster. It was a magazine format issue, and I got it for a really good price, and it was already framed and matted, and yeah, I think it's really cool. And it's always fun to get, to at least have a few covers. To me, that just, I don't know, you feel like you're on a different level, even though they're maybe not super expensive covers. They're still covers, and that's always nice to have.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, the more covers, the better. I think
Um,
in anybody's collection. Are you more of a published collector, published piece collector versus getting sketches? I mean, you've mentioned getting a few, but
no, I'm kind of whatever comes down the pike. I really I have a mix for
yeah,
sure. I like published pieces, maybe a little better, but if I see the right sketch, that's good enough. We've had some sort of we had a collection go through that had like just some sketches and random things. I mean, pretty extensive. The guy must have went to a lot of things. I got a Johnny Quest is my all-time favorite animated thing. I'll just stick with that. I loved it as a kid. I think it really had some great stuff. Doug Wildey, I think it was amazing creator. So we had a Johnny Quest head sketch, sort of smaller size. It's in my calf. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to have that. It's just in pencils and signed. And I did get I think maybe that was a Mike Berkey dueling dealer. He had a Doug Wildey page with Sergeant Rock, and I was able to grab that in one of the shows. So I do have a Doug Wildey published page. So that again was something great to pick up for me.
very cool. Now I'm with, yeah, I was just looking at the counts. About maybe a little less than 2/3 of your pieces on CAF are interior pages, but you have about 100 commissions or con sketches in there. So that's
Yep.
yeah, very well represented.
When I go to shows, I have they're they're big guides to comics. They have all the comic covers in. They're the Gerber guides.
Yep.
They were a big thing back in the day, the 90s. But I have a couple of those. They are extensively signed. If I go to a show, I'll take a volume of that, and I just have people keep adding to it. I got it from an auction that was local. A collector that I used to know, who was older, sold his things, and I went to that auction and got these Gerber guides. And he had a lot of Golden Age. He had Joe Simon in there, Bob Kane again, Martin O'Dell. So quite a few like really nice Golden Age artists. And then I've been adding since. I got Gerhard to do a Cerebus sketch in the back of one. I got Steranko to do a big Steranko in the back of, his beautiful signature in the back of one.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that. I'd rather have one volume filled with great stuff than have to dig through boxes and boxes. Where's that signed comic? Now I do have some of that, but I don't go with the big stacks like guys do to just get people to sign covers. I have my favorites, but yeah, I like to do that too. So signatures, and if you can get a little sketch jam piece in there or something, that's fun too. So
That's cool that you pick those up from a collector that you knew, and you're kind of carrying on the tradition. I mean, you already had
yeah,
some signatures already in there, but that's fun, man. You're like, it's kind of like carrying on that collector's
yeah,
legacy
it's like
and
passing the
with your own.
torch. Yeah,
Right, exactly. I like that idea. I mean, I never really thought about
Yeah, I
somebody with.
think Jim Rugg did a little head sketching one a couple years ago when he and Ed Pisker were together. I got Ed to sign, Neil Adams, and just anybody I could get. When I went to Baltimore a couple years ago, John Cassaday was set up, and I had his Dynamite uh, book of covers.
Hmm.
I had that the whole show, and every time I tried to get over there, the line was too long. I'm working the show, so I
Of
can't
course.
stand the line. So I waited all day. It's getting to the end of the show. I'm like, oh my gosh. And the line like disappeared. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get over there. Well, they closed the line off. So his guy was there, and I said, look, I'm right there. I've been waiting all day. I'm paying for the signature. It's not like it's, just take my money. So John gave me a nice signature, and then he did his JC in it.
Hmm.
And again, so grateful I did that and didn't like bashful away and not do it, because the next year he was gone.
Right.
So again, that's a great thing. I love that book. Dynamite did a great job with those covers. Hint, hint, Dynamite, you should do a Linsner cover book. I would love to see that. You do all these great Linsner covers those books I do pick up when I can. I just,
There's almost too much material for a Linsner cover book from Dynamite,
there
but
is, yeah,
he's only doing it in
they'd have to
7 or 8
pick.
covers a month.
And they did a James Bond series the other year,
Hmm.
and I'll relate this story real quick. He was on a live feed. I don't remember where I was watching it, and I said, "Have you ever been approached by Dynamite to do the James Bond series covers?" Because I said I think you would be great at it. And within a couple months, they solicited a cover from him, and I asked him at OAX. I said, "I'm not taking credit for this, but I asked that, and then you did it." And he's like, they approached me, and he said, they pay attention, so it's very likely that could have sparked him doing his covers. And I was like, well, I'll just go with that, and that's pretty cool. So,
Were you able to buy it?
what's that?
Any of the a Linsner James Bond cover?
No, unfortunately, I have the one Deja Thoris. That was kind of
Mhm.
my big swing. The Bond cover, I would have loved to, but it's just a little out of my price range. The Herculoids he's doing right now, I just think they're great, but again, it's just not my realm. But I can pick the comics up and enjoy the covers. So
Exactly.
yeah, I think he does do 37 covers a month, no doubt. It's a lot, but they always look good.
They do. I know. I love Joe's work a lot. I picked up a piece at the auction actually
Yeah, that's great.
from Joe. Finally, I got my own Dawn piece, my first Dawn piece. Probably the only one I'll get.
Yeah,
But
I have a Dawn piece. I have a black and white Scarlet Witch. I think I might have something else. They're all on my calf. But yeah, when I see that stuff, if it was close to my range, I'm like, I'm trying to get that. So yeah.
all right, well let's see what else you got here. Well, there we go. Cool. Roll right into some James Bond art, and this is Aaron Lopresti.
This is another great story. um, this book was solicited in previews, and it was solicited as you see it. And there are articles online, I think they're still there if you look them up. This cover got censored. The James Bond people said, yeah, we're not so much about this half naked girl thing anymore. So we want a dress on there, and they digitally added a little black dress. Well, after I saw all this, I was just like, wow. So I reached out to Lopresti, and I said, any chance you have this cover? And he said, why, yes, I do. And I said, I'm really interested. And the rest is history. It's on my calf gallery. And I contacted him and said, you wouldn't have any like the pencil roughs or anything? And he had two of those. They're in the gallery, I think, attached to this. And I'm like, really cool, because you get the Steranko straight up Nick Fury homage, which is what he said they asked for, and the uncensored cover. And that kind of stuff I love. I love stuff that is, this is not what printed. What printed is different. This is what I have. I think it's really neat. And it's got all the elements in there,
Yeah, I'm throwing a link to the piece over on Cap so people can see how they printed it versus how it was.
Yeah.
So did Aaron send you because you knew what the published cover looked like. So he sent you an image of what the art looked like before you paid for it?
I think he did. Like I said, I saw it in previews, and then I saw these articles where they were talking about how they censored this cover.
Mm-hmm.
So I had seen it, and then I was like, and I asked him about it, and he said I said, how did they do the dress? And he said they went in digitally and added like a little black dress on the lady, and yeah, very cool.
I've always liked Aaron's work. Yeah, this is really nice.
Yeah,
not the Steranko layout kind of thing, and
yeah,
certainly it was colored too. Feels a lot like a period piece for this
sure.
cover. Right, something a little different here. Kevin McGuire, right? This is from X-Men Forever issue 5.
Kevin McGuire is definitely at the top of my list. The expressions. He can tell so much with minimal amounts of lines, and the expressions, the discomfort in people. In my calf gallery, I have a Justice League page. It is Guy Gardner down one side, Ice in the middle, and then Fire on the other side. Ice is kind of the same static character down the middle, but Fire and Guy Gardner are just doing like expressions of discomfort the whole way down in like 5 or 6 panels. It's really a cool page, and it's just such a great example of how Kevin does stuff. This was X-Men Forever, the miniseries that was 5 issues, and it was 6. It was one of those kind of weird release things, and this was the Toad cover, and again, I was able to pick this up. What I would now it would sound really reasonable, but at the time I was like, wow, how can I pass that? So yeah,
you didn't.
You did. Yep. And I have
right,
several pages from that series too. I was finding those here and there, so I'd pick those up as well.
Awesome. Well, I threw the link in there because there are no comments on this piece on CAF yet. So that's there's something wrong. How did it go underneath the radar? It's got a couple likes on it, but not a single comment. I'll leave it open. I'm going to make sure I put one on there before the night is done. But that's cool. I've always liked Kevin's stuff too.
Yeah.
So no, this is a nice one. So where do we go from here? We have all right. You mentioned Cassaday, right? So we've got.
Yep, this was a John Cassaday. This was the year that he had just passed. Albert. This was one I looked at a million times on Albert's site. I kept staring at it. I was at Baltimore, and I'm like, this is really not in the budget, but I'll tell you what, it's now or never because this will be gone, and I grabbed it. This was James Bond Origin. Where they kind of go back to kind of World War II and kind of where he's sort of starting out. And this has like a nice, you got a nice ink wash in this character that, you don't normally see quick in a cover. And I just thought this was great.
No, I agree. I always like John's work too. And this is, he just had a great, I don't know, composition sense.
Yeah.
He really could lay out a really good cover, and this is a perfect example. You get 3 layers of characters, the silhouettes in the front. The way it was handled and by the printer, I'm sure John had kind of say over that because they were in red on the book cover, not like a dark silhouette or anything. So. Yeah, I think John was just really masterful, and then just the way he could handle tonal work on his pieces too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was just amazing. And you have a nice photograph of you, which on this
Yeah,
piece
that
here.
was it. The one time I was at San Diego Con, and I just saw him, and he wasn't like there as a guest. He was just at San Diego Con, I guess. And he walked by the booth, and I like hollered over at him because I recognized him. And he came over and posed for a picture, and I got to talk to him a little bit. And his X-Men series was, again, that was just another wow, this is so good. Astonishing X-Men was just so great. There's a big regret. Albert had a ton of pages. I stared at them all the time, had ones picked out, and one day someone either went in and bought them all or somebody packed them all away. I don't know what, but I missed out on one of those. But I have Avengers. I think it's Avengers versus X-Men, A versus X, something page. It has kind of a mix in by him, also in CAF. So,
Mhm.
so I did get something that has X-Men. It has a beaten up Wolverine in it and Thor, and so it's I got a
It's
page.
got Thor on it too.
Yeah. Thor's carrying beat up Wolverine after the battle.
All right, not too bad. If
Yep.
you ever want to let that one go, you just let me know.
Okay.
All right, I have a lot of regrets about Cat today as well, not picking up enough pieces by him. Alberto says there's an X-Men cover coming up. Hey,
Wow. Yeah.
those are hard to come by, and yeah. So let's see here. Oh, this is a prelim, and we get to see the prelim and the finished piece. But we'll start with the prelim here by Mr. Frank Brunner.
Yeah. This I found this on eBay, and I was just like, my mind was blown. Like I said, I like history, especially World War I, World War II. When I was a kid, I built tank models and warships and that kind of stuff. And I just always just found that technology really interesting. And I always liked Enemy Ace. I like that sort of Knights of the Sky, dueling it out kind of storyline. And when I saw this, I'm like, what is this? It is awesome. An army of the dead, British flag, a death train with 666, enemy ace flying over, strafing the train, horrified look, close up. So that I grabbed.
But what was because I know
This
that
is
you.
this was a specialty piece for one of his hardcover books. I have
Oh,
pictures of all that in CAF with, I think, the inked piece. It was one of his, art, I think Mythos, an art book, but you had to get the special edition to get the extra pages in the back that had this art in it. So amazingly, after I got this, I was able to find a copy without like a ton of searching because I'm like, I'll never find it. And there it is. That's Frank Brunner's inks of it. And I was just like, wow, I love that so much. I reached out to Frank, who said, I'm not doing commissions anymore, and I was like, ugh. So that led to Gary Martin having a commission post on CAF, and I'm like, would you ink this piece? And I sent him a scan, and he did this beautiful ink job. I like it even better. It's just something more to the skeleton in the front. It's just a little more horror in this. Frank's is beautiful, not negating that at all, but Gary did a great job. I want to have something else done by Gary. It just hasn't, the budget just hasn't been there recently, but yeah, just beautiful. The cross hatching and the technique in this. This was really special. This was a commission that I sort of stepped up for and pursued, and it's cool.
yeah, I'm kind of looking at Frank's version versus Gary's, and yeah, I mean there's striking differences, right? I mean the one that Frank did is I don't even know how to describe it. It's more like a Durer print. It's just a little bit rougher, and
Yeah.
Gary's is very technical, and especially with the cross hatching and everything, and it just does have a very different vibe. than Frank's take on it.
Yeah, and I see Gary's, he'll puts things up every so often, like some of his like just portrait work of, Ripley from Alien or superheroes or whatever. And man, it's just great work. He is really a master of inking, and stuff's just beautiful.
Nope. I've always been a fan of Gary's and appreciative that he's on CAF. I'm sure he's gotten a lot of work, as a result of
He
keeping
should. I
active.
mean, yeah, he did a sketchbook on Kickstarter sometime after this. I picked that up, so at least I can look at his work, without having to, have a bunch of it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Not changing gears too much here, but a Kevin McGuire.
Yep, this is the Iceman
Cover.
cover from that series. Again, I kind of caught these sort of two in a row from different sources, and I'm like, man, okay. Then you get, visions of grandeur, like, well, I'm gonna get all these covers. The Juggernaut did pass through auction, I think, twice. I think I did make an offer on an auction site for it, but never got anything back. And then I was just like, well, I think that bird has flown. I don't think those covers are going to be affordable or come up. So I'm glad for the two I have.
Right. Well, I mean, come on. I mean, having 2 of the 6, that's not so
Yeah,
bad.
yeah,
But yeah, we all, I think as collectors, we all entertain the idea of, complete issues one day, or, the potential to, you know, just own all the covers, especially on a limited series. That'd be so cool. And this one, at least maybe when they were coming out, there was you could have thought that it would have been a possibility if they all would have been on the market.
yeah. And again, if I would have been looking for these things when these issues came out, but I mean, this was several years later, so I was happy to find the two.
Mm-hmm.
That they were affordable.
Well, congrats. That's awesome. Now, you mentioned Linsner earlier, and that
This was my big Linsner piece from one of the shows he was on, maybe the first one you had him on.
I believe so.
I mean,
Yeah, I
this
remember
is
this.
another edited cover that's unedited. And again, I just like having something that was changed. I'm the only one that has this. And it's not, it's nothing gratuitous. It's a
No, of course
a
not.
beautiful Linsner, beautiful girl. He just knocked it out of the park with those. I was picking all the comics up. Also, I have like the sketch covers and the regular covers, and this was my favorite, and it really stood out. That show, though, he had one or two pieces. I think there was a Kill Raven and something else that came up after this that were like super affordable, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?" But I just couldn't do it. So this
That
this
was
is
the
my
first show we
one
did
great
with.
Linsner.
Yeah, that was our first show with him. I remember
Yep.
that, and I kind of regretted not putting the more affordable stuff up front. I that was so early in us doing live stream sales
Sure.
that I didn't really
Yep.
have a format figured out, and um, but I learned a lot from that particular show, because that, the more affordable, because I like that Kill Raven too. It
Yeah.
stood out. It was such a
Yep.
nice piece. But yeah, no, you did pretty well with this one. I mean, at the end of the day, and you still can get, when he was at OAX in January. I mean, he still brings pretty affordably priced pre-done work. I
Yeah.
mean, his
Mhm.
single character stuff. Maybe it's not quite full figure. You could still get him for $400 or $500 direct from him. I
Sure.
mean, when he's
Sure.
on a show or something, they might be up a little bit. But yeah, Joe's awesome.
And again, it's a nice
Marcus
published cover.
Marcus says this is better. Okay, than any Kill Raven. That's all right. Everybody has their own opinions. Let's see. But no, I'm always been a big, huge fan of Joe's work. But switch back over here. We have another James Bond,
Yeah,
cover
this is
here.
another
X-Men.
origin story um, issue, variant cover. It's James Bond. They've stolen a German Stuka. That's a piece of flying history that I just have affinity for the design of that plane. I have some like Stuka things for some reason. I just always thought that was cool. And when I saw this cover and then saw the book, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's really cool. What was neat was, again, I kind of put myself out there. I found Bob Quinn, who did the interiors, and he had quite a few pages. I picked up maybe a half dozen pages from a couple issues, stuff that had like great, had the Stuka in, had a U-boat, but I have the page that the panel mimics this cover. And I thought that was like really cool. I like stuff like that. So
Yeah, no, it's
yeah,
always.
thanks.
I,
I
I'm
think
the
it's really
same. I
awesome.
like it if you can get a interior page that touches on the cover image. That's awesome. Books these days don't really have too much of that. With
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but when you're doing a throwback here, John's not going to miss an opportunity to take something from the story and actually use it on the cover. So that's cool.
Well, I have a Savage Sword of Conan page that one of the panels is used in the title page of the book. So I thought that was really cool. I have the page, but then that art from that panel of Conan is actually in the title page of the book, like in the, table of contents. And
Right.
I really geek out on that kind of stuff. So that was pretty neat.
Yeah, that doesn't happen often enough, I think.
Yeah.
Oh man, now this next piece is I think is really really awesome. It's from Captain Marvel 57, Pat
Yeah.
Broderick, Bob Wyacek. I mean, I was just commenting the other day. I love Pat stuff. I mean, I'm not a Western fan, but I think the work he's doing today is as good as anything he's done in his entire career.
Yep.
He's fantastic. So I see this, and he his style is pretty distinct. Even back then. I mean, it's so nice.
And it's got Thor in the top center panel.
I know. When I was looking
Well,
at it, that was a surprise, because I was so focused on all the other panels, and then I go to that one, I'm like, "Hey, it's Thor in there. This is a good one."
well, when I was a kid, Captain Marvel, the Pat Broderick issues were that was one of my favorite titles at the time. I didn't miss an issue, and when I started collecting, the pages just weren't. You couldn't find them. They just weren't on the market. They weren't out there. I found one or two, but man, they were out of my range. And then a string of them came up at auction. There's a story in this is 57. In 55 and 56, there's a villain death grip, and it's just a 2-issue story arc. And I loved that villain. It was designed by Dave Cockrum, I found out later. And the guy's power was he would touch you and he would drain your life energy out. And he sort of ages Captain Marvel when he touches them, and he wore gloves to protect them. And I just wanted a page from that. There's some on calf that I have in my kind of favorites thing, just bookmark, because I really would have liked to have gotten one from that. When this series of pages came up, man, they were just getting out of my grip. And this one I was able to get a hold of. So this is my one great Captain Marvel Broderick page. And this really harkens back to when I was a kid, something I really wanted.
Yeah, that's nice. Everybody knows that. I've always said those rounded corners. They're always flashbacks. I can't say that I've seen in a while where in that third panel how they have the panel is squared off on the left and rounded on
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
right.
Isn't
You're
that something?
leading you into a little bit of a recap from previous stories. I like that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't even say if I've seen. I'm sure it's been done before. It's probably common. I just haven't seen it done.
Yeah. I haven't either. So yeah.
I like that. Yeah, that's awesome. Great page. And yes, I saw Marcus say I should commission him. I should have commissioned him when he was at OAX last. There were some really great pieces. Tom McDonald, I think, got a really nice Green Lantern, and I know I saw a
Yeah.
few
His
other
Green
pieces.
Lantern work was really great too. Yeah. I
Yep.
enjoyed that in the 90s.
All right, so Ernie Chan with John Buscema layouts on the Savage Sword of Conan page. I mean, every one of these pages is awesome, but that second panel is fantastic. I mean, the first panel has uh, it's just so gritty that it's the Chan inks over Buscema. Anything, whether it's layout or fully penciled pieces, were always really nice. I mean, the inkers on the Savage Sword of Conan it was make or break in some cases where some of the stuff wasn't great, but I love the heavy inking of Chan in this piece.
Yeah. I I started out as a too young kid reading Savage Sword of Conan. I picked it up every time we went out, and Big John, his artwork, his Avengers stuff, just his artwork is just so amazing. Again, his expressions and anatomy, and he just did such wonderful art. And this, I think, was an Anthony, let's make a deal. And I really lowballed it, and he took it. And I'm like, finally, I have a John Buscema inked page. So this is kind of my big swing. I have a Buscema penciled page from Savage Sword that I got for a really good price. And then the back of that has a nice John inked Conan on it, like a small Conan drawing a sword or whatever. But when I saw this page, Chan really pulled out all the stops with the ink on this. I mean, this is really like Twilight. This is unique to his inking, that it really looks like it is in between light and day. And yeah, I think it's a great page, and I was glad to be able to get it and to have something by John Buscema. I think his work is really, really special.
Yeah, no, I agreed. This really is a nice one. I just left a comment on it for you. The first one.
All right.
I've broken the ice on it.
All right.
I remember when you picked this one up too from the Make Offer show with Anthony. Anthony
I,
tends to do really
those are
well.
my favorite shows. If I have the money, I'm ready to make an offer. I just don't have the money every time, but we'll see what tomorrow brings.
Yeah, yeah, you never know. He picked up, as always, he picked up a lot of stuff at
I bet.
Heroes. So I think he's got a lot of new stuff. I didn't even get to preview it. No, I saw one piece and it was actually really nice. It was gosh, I think it was maybe it was an FF page by gosh, I can't remember who it was by, but it had X Factor in it. Everybody
Mhm.
but Iceman. So it was pretty cool. But I didn't want to ask him what he wanted for it. So I guess we'll probably see that one tomorrow.
Right.
Okay. Next up, we have a Alan Davis, Mark Farmer Inc.'s Infinity Conflict page. You mentioned your love for
Yep.
Alan Davis.
And again, I'm just glad I was able to get a couple pages. Not particularly cheap, but affordable. And man, this Warlock, the expressions, the Thanos, just that sort of tension in the page, Infinity Stone. I just think it's great to look at. Warlock sort of has that little bit of a smirky expression in the sixth panel there, and yeah, just really neat. That whole Infinity series, just great art. I have a couple pages from that.
Yeah, that's nice. I love the fact that it's so dark and they just focusing on the characters in the table and that's about it. It's nice.
Yeah.
See, and Davis was, for me, I don't rank him in the top X-Men stuff because even though I didn't read Excalibur, and I missed out on, I think, some of that prime period for him when everybody who were coming into comics in the early '90s just loved everything, every book he was working on, and um, I
I
think
learned to like him when he did Batman and the Outsiders, and those were
uh,
like dollar bin books, and I discovered that, and I'm like, these are great. Like the art is great in them, and that's some early stuff. And
mhm. Yeah, I picked up some 2000 AD books recently when Casper and I
Mhm.
were at this barn sale of comics, or no, it's tent sale. I'm sorry, not barn, tent sale of comics. And yeah, his early work is, it's definitely a little different, but it's cool. It's like it's interesting seeing his style as he's breaking into comics on on crazy 2000 AD books. But
And
yeah.
jumping back to X-Men, X-Men 213 is one of my favorite covers. Wolverine and Sabretooth. When
Hmm.
we were at OAX, Mike Allred's broker Simon was there and showed me his portfolio, and he had a page from that, and I was just like, I don't believe it. I'm like, that is just, it was awesome to see an original art page from that, and it was a great page with Sabretooth and Wolverine in it. I just really like that book. It's just the covers, such a close up, and it's really shows Davis's style.
Yeah. Nope. I completely agree. No Miracle Man. Nope. No Miracle Man. Uh, yeah, that's very true. But anyways, cool piece. And where are we gonna go from here? Um, oh, all
There it
right.
is.
There it is. The
The
Warner
Warner
Roth.
Roth with the leader of the X-Men, Cyclops, in the top two
I know, but he
panels.
got knocked out by the third panel on this one. Yeah, he may be the greatest one. Well, that's because he's always first in the battle. People don't
Well, he's
understand,
also getting knocked out by, the main villain of the book, El Tigre, the
Yes.
famous X-Men villain.
Right. Well, he had to soften up the targets, so he's
That's
first
right.
in. He's sure he's going to get knocked down, but he made it easy for everybody else to come and take and mop up things. Yeah, look at that. That's
And
the
it's got a
best page
great
for sure.
thock in the end. I mean, who doesn't like a thock and a brack and a zot? You got the right sound effects. Uh,
Oh shoot.
Something I noticed about this page is it's stamped on the back July 66, and I was born May 66. And I like to think that when I was being born, this could have been on someone's drawing table getting penciled in May, maybe. So I just thought that was a nice idea.
Exactly.
So
Roth for the
yeah,
Roth.
and I was happy to be able to get something like this, because this is really my great old page, and it's X-Men, and I think this will probably be my one and only with prices, but it's great. I'm happy with it.
Yep, I agree. And there's a comment on it from Marcus. It says the storytelling from that time period is really strong, and you could feel the power of that backhand coming out at us in the last panel.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
says Roth is definitely a top X-Men artist to lay the groundwork for all that followed. See, even Marcus agrees. He might not put him in his top five, but he knows that Werner Roth, played an important role in
Well, that's
X-Men.
been the best thing about posting my art up, is waiting for Marcus to have a really great comment. They're always good comments. So I appreciate it, Marcus. Continue on.
So true. Well, well, obviously I like this page, and it was from issue 26.
Yep.
Love that. Now next one is a X-Men page as well, and it's by a artist who you said, well, okay, so you don't have an uncanny page, but you have a hidden years page.
This
Not,
was my lucky one. Jim had this, Warden, and again, I'll lament, he had two of them, like another one with Angel in that was like, right after this or before it. And this had a little more Angel. I love that Angel version of his costume. So this was a deal, and super happy I have it. I wish I would have been in tune with Hidden Years pages when that was really going on, that I could have gotten more, because this is the closest I'm going to get to Uncanny Burn. So I'll take it. I'll take it as a win.
mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I've been tempted by the hidden years pages too, just because I don't think I'll ever own an uncanny page. But these are still they're decent. They're they're affordable, I think, and
Yep.
lot of great pages from this. And, the X-Men and the Savage Land issues from Hidden Years were really nice.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, I really liked the series and the books.
mhm,
They were really good.
they were. They definitely were. Yeah. Let's see. I see this and it makes me want to go and see what's available right now. But no, congrats on that. That's
Yeah,
super
thanks.
cool. Now you were talking about uh,
This
Nick's
has
work.
all the elements that I just really geek out on.
You mentioned Ant-Man, and
Yeah,
there you go.
you got Ant-Man hanging over the brim of the hat. That is so cool. That's just so fun. What a great idea. He's just like riding on the hat of Ghost Rider, and then in the bottom you have that just great face and pointing like, "Hey, look," kind of thing going on. Yeah, I just love this series, and I love these pages so much. I have one where Ant-Man's actually doing in the bottom panel, he's doing the growing from little to big and punching a guy, and I just think brilliant. That's really neat.
Yeah, and this was penciled by Dragata and inked
Yep.
by Allred. Great combo, and they were both at Heroes this weekend, not too far apart from one another. I wonder
Oh
if
wow.
I had
Yeah.
the chance to talk. They were basically, I think, one row over from one another, but on the
Oh,
same like
yeah,
aisle.
yeah.
Uh, well, that's cool. Yeah, and I love both their work, and seeing this makes me want to get one of those pages from Felix now before they're all gone. But here, look at you have another one.
This was one of the earlier all red pages I was able to get, and man, that mole man and the mole people. Uh, this is great. I mean, you know, you almost have what, a 2/3 splash. You got the Fantastic Four in the first panel, a great close up of Sue and Reed in the second one. This was great to get. I'm really happy with it. This was in sort of I think it was an anniversary issue where like they had a couple different stories by a couple different artists. Um, it doesn't exist online. I try and find the printed cover and the printed page, online that I can put them on my calf because I always like to see the printed with the art. And where they put it on like to read, they have the first part of the book, but this story is nowhere in print, like online, I should say.
Right.
I should dig for the actual book and just scan the page, I guess, is what I'll have to do eventually. But yeah, very dynamic. I mean, the forced perspective. It's you got the phone coming at you. You got the rod coming at you. Just a great page.
Yeah, and those are Kirby buildings for sure in that panel there. Just
Oh yeah,
you know,
yeah.
yeah. No, it's awesome. I really like this one a lot too. And number one Marvel fan is of course a fan of the Mole Man, the misunderstood gentleman that he is.
Yep, I agree. He's a good villain.
Now, mentioning earlier, Bart Sears a few times and
Yep.
Justice League Europe. So, I mean, it's so funny when you look at Bart's work; it is so distinct. I mean, I can't equate his style with really anyone else's. It's
No,
just
it is unique. Everybody looks like they're chiseled out of something. I mean, and it works. Um, this story arc featured these extremist characters that were from another dimension, and man, I just really loved that storyline and those over the top weird apocalyptic destroy their world characters that get into the world of the Justice League and they have to fight. And you have the character Blue Jay at the top, and he's been captured and he's basically plucking his feathers out. Um, it's just this was a great find for me because I really liked that story arc a lot. So
Well, I didn't realize how gruesome that page was. I'm looking at now that I can see the colored version, it's making so much more sense.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow,
it's brutal. They kill and destroy a lot in those books.
very nice. And there's no comments on this one, everybody. I'm throwing that one in the chat too. I, Todd deserves a comment on this one as well. There we go. That
It
one is
was, I'm telling you, the page that you had from Bart from Justice League Europe, man, it's calling. It was really calling me, but
hey, but you got a good one. No, I like
yep.
this one. The layout's awesome. Yeah, everything you'd want in a piece by
Yeah, I was
Bart.
able to get a couple pages. I had one with Starro. That's another weird villain that I love the Starro, the starfish on the face. I don't know. That's just so crazy and funny, and it's hard to take it seriously, but it works. So
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Now let's see here. We have two more pieces left, and they're both 007 related.
yep,
So take a look at this next one. So
this
Neil
was
Adams
this
piece.
was my Neil Adams home run for me. I wanted a 007. He, of course, offered, I mean, he's done it. The
Hmm.
generic, Bond with the gun promo thing. And I'm like, I don't want that. I want something unique. And I sent him a picture. This is basically, he's lighting a cigarette. It's the first time he says Bond, James Bond, playing cards. And he did it dead on. And I was so happy with this. I just finally felt like I had gotten something I was overdue. I missed out on a piece on eBay long, long time ago. It was Neil Adams did Connery in the Never Say Never kind of the movie poster shot, and I just got outbid. And then I don't know, eBay was different. This was a couple years later. The guy contacted me and said, I know you bid against me on this. Would you be interested in buying it? And I was just in a bad spot personally, financially at that point. And I'm like, I can't do it. So getting him to do this in the pandemic stuff, yeah, just this is really going to always be special to me. Just because I picked the picture, the pose, he did it.
And he was
So
amenable to it.
feels
That's
feels
awesome.
personal.
I remember, there were a lot of people that made like special requests of him during those live streams, and he always seemed, willing to do it, right? I mean, at that point in time when you couldn't go to cons, maybe that might help sway him a little bit, but he always
Yeah,
seemed
you could have
open
done
to it.
anything. I have an Ant-Man, Cyclops, a beautiful Storm. They're all in my calf. Some I got during the pandemic. A few I really scored on eBay one time. I think Mile High had them, 4 or 5 of them, and I mean they were cheap, and I'm like, wow. So yeah, so at least I have those. I don't have any pages, but I have something. I have a signed book with a beautiful sketch in the Green Lantern one. That's a beautiful piece. And I got a Green Arrow from Mike in one of the dueling dealers. So again, I can't complain. I have some beautiful Neil Adams work. That again, I love the Kree Scroll thing. I
Yeah.
asked for that, and that's what he gave me, and I'm like, man, that's what I wanted. So
Yeah, let's see, is that my favorite out of this one? The Enemy Ace is really nice too, of
yeah,
course.
I had asked for that. I kind of, hey, could you do it in this pose? Because I thought maybe I could get him to do that Brunner profile where he was screaming,
Hmm.
but he just did sort of the normal one, and I'm happy with it. You know.
Yeah. No, that's great. You did pick up quite a few. That's
Yep.
awesome. That's
Yep.
wonderful.
Yeah, I think we had the Black Canary in one of our onlines, and I just sort of stepped into it and got it. Again, less than it would have been if I would have got it from him back in the day. So I consider it a win.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Nice. Wow. So that's yeah, there's 12. You have 12 in your calf.
Yep.
All right. Well, we have one final James Bond artwork.
This is an exclusive for everyone watching tonight. I don't have this on calf. I don't want anyone else to be able to copy this. This was a commission that Kevin did for me. I asked him if he ever did Bond before. He said no. I knew he was sort of a Bond fan. The commission at the time was 9 characters. I gave him a list of who's who in villains. Some of them are not Connery villains, but they're the best villains. And after I gave him the list, I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot, Blofeld and maybe Jaws. He just threw. I said, I don't care if it costs extra. I got to have those guys in there. And man, he knocked it out of the park. I think this is all the little touches. Blofeld, I wanted to Donald Pleasance because he had the scar and is the most over the top, but he gave him the cat. Rosa Klebb has the brass knuckles. Red Grant is pulling the garrote out of his watch. Scaramanga has the gun. Largo with the eye patch is doing the Italian, curse symbol. Dr. No in the radiation suit. I mean, he really pulled the stops out. I think this is just great.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
this was the biggest commission I ever had done. I had it done, years ago. So by today's standards, it would probably be cheap. But oh, hey, thanks a lot, Derek, for sending me that image. I'll put that up. That's cool. So yeah, this is, like I said, I just wanted to share it tonight because this is like really a key piece for me. But I don't want it on calf because I just don't want anyone to like kind of reproduce this. I was
Well, I
hoping
get
he'd
it.
make a print out of it, because he does color prints that he has at shows. That I would have been happy with, but
Well,
that
then,
didn't
then you could
happen.
say it's published.
What's that?
Then you could say it's published.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
But
the
yeah,
detail on this.
Knick-Knack would have been cool. I don't know where he would have fit. He maybe just the top of his head somewhere.
But no, I think it's beautiful. I really do. I mean, just looking, I can only imagine how nice it looks in person because, McGuire was always, he was so good at drawing faces and this one, the likenesses are great, but I just like all the little details in there, even down to the hair, the shading in his suit and just,
Yeah, the cross-hatching work in that is
it's,
great, and he did all this himself. And I had to have a couple Bond girls, so I went with Dr. No, and of course Pussy Galore you have to have in there. Yeah, there are other characters and villains. This is kind of my core Connery villains plus the most over the top. Jaws was Jaws and Scaramanga, Baron Zamandi. I just think those were great Roger Moore villains and kind of those classic over the top kind of characters. So that was kind of how I picked and choose because I couldn't put 20 things on this. So yeah, just I was blown away when I got it. I was just, yeah, I thought it was just so great. And the likenesses are really good. I said, I wanted a Connery style Bond, and I liked that he did a Kevin McGuire style character. It
mhm,
doesn't necessarily look like Connery exactly. It looks like a Kevin McGuire guy though, and I think that's really cool.
agreed. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm enjoying. I could look at this for a while. It really is well
Yeah.
done, and it
Yep.
should be published somewhere somehow because it is so well done.
Yep.
Well, congrats, and I get it. I mean, so are you really gonna never have it on your calf? Are you gonna withhold it from the site
For now.
for
For
now?
now.
Okay.
Maybe down the road I'll mellow out, but
I know. I mean, trust me. I mean, I know
that's
how
the
it
only
goes.
thing I have that's like that I just, that's kind of my thing. But I wanted to share it tonight just so I could say this is really like the thing I really liked. You know, not that it's my favorite out of everything I have necessarily, but kind of. You know,
I mean, as far
his
as
the
commission
bond
goes,
thing.
was that like one of your more detailed, expensive commissions that you've ever done? I mean, as far as
Yeah,
you know, the
that
commission
was the
itself.
most expensive commission I had done. And like I said, by today's standards, people be like, "Well, that's hardly anything." But for me, you know, it was enough. I had the money at the time, so um, it was funny because at the time I was hitting up. There's a rock poster artist that goes by Stainboy.
Mm.
He's kind of like Coop and Kozik,
Yeah, I don't know.
and I was kind of trying to get him to do a James Bond commission, and he sort of had just changed his style from kind of that graphic Coop style to a different style, and he was going to have prints made and everything, and then I think we just kind of lost connection. We were like there, but we weren't. And then when the McGuire opportunity came up, I'm like, I guess that's where my money's going. No regrets. I mean, you know, I'm sure he would have did a great job on the piece we talked about, but it just didn't come together. And then Kevin was open, and I was like, wow, thanks. So
Well, I mean, I did Google Stainboy artist, and yeah, their work is pretty cool.
yeah, and a lot of his is a little, risque,
It is, but yeah,
if
it's
it's
awesome.
the Melvin's poster behind me is Stain Boy. I have another Melvin's piece over here. So yep.
Yeah, well, that
I
yeah, there's
love the Get Carter piece. I think he did an art book that was the cover. It's Michael Caine with the shotgun, and yeah, I just that's really cool to me. I thought that was really neat.
yeah, there's yeah, no, I really appreciate this. It's no, they're this is fantastic. Cool.
Yeah, I have a few posters at home, but like I said, a lot of them are not for everybody consumption, so I don't really have them hanging up at
Right,
home,
right.
but they're
No,
cool.
but good art is good art, right? At the end
Yep,
of the day, I mean,
for
anything
sure.
that's like a concert poster
Yep.
or taken to that to that level or whatever is cool. I mean, we look at
Well, the one that I have behind me, that harkens back to it's a Merry Melodies Meatless Fly Day. It was a short, and it's
oh
a
yeah.
spider versus a fly, and the spider ends up in flames in the end, and he's like, "Look, I'm a Stuka." And when I saw this poster, I'm like,
It was made for you.
"Yep, it all comes to full circle with the Melvin's poster." So,
Uh,
yep,
wow. That's cool. Yeah, that's like JP Coyson and Gigzilla, who does a lot of poster artwork. I mean, good poster artwork is always fun. I mean, it doesn't matter almost what the material is, or just because when it's done well, when the colors are right, when it has that screen print quality. I mean,
yep,
all of I mean, it's nostalgic in
yeah,
a lot of ways.
yep.
So cool. No, I'm glad. Well, I'm glad I'm gonna have to like I don't know, bookmark the search. I'm curious, just see more of their work. It is awesome, but yeah, a little bit risque, but no, nothing wrong
Yeah.
with it. You can't hang that up at the office at Hakes. You might get in trouble.
Yeah.
I,
The
you
two
know,
I have are a little sketchy just in the content, as far as, not nudity, but, I guess someone could take offense with the German thing, but, it's
no one
done.
has yet.
Yeah. So, and
Good.
again, I'm not making any statement. It's just from that cartoon, and that's
Hmm.
what it's about. And I like the art. So
Yeah. No, as do I. Well, Todd, we've done it. We made it to the 2 hour mark.
amazing. It went like nothing. I was a little nervous, and you watch everyone else do theirs. I mean, the prop god the other week was a little tough. uh, that's quite a collection, and I'm like, man, I have stuff, but I think I have some
You have
nice art.
stories though. That's the thing. I mean, everybody has a story. And you're the
Yep,
first guy who went to an auction at a barn and picked up comic cards.
right.
that's a first in over 4 years, 5 years of talking with people. I guess
Yeah,
we
it
haven't had
took
that.
3 auctions to sell all that stuff. I mean, it had to be a giant store somewhere.
Hmm.
They were selling stacks of Frank Miller Daredevils for like $2. I mean,
Well, no wonder your car was packed, and
it was packed.
damn,
Yep.
that's like a dream come true.
Yeah, you have to have at least one of those stories where you had a good find or something like that. So yeah, yep,
Awesome. Yeah, Rich Danny says it's not a pissing contest. That's true, Rich.
yeah.
But I can't tell you how many times I'll ask somebody to do an interview with me, and they compare it to other ones. They were like, "What would anybody want to hear about from me?" Right? And
Well,
and
it's a little intimidating when someone's whipping out Ditkos and Kirby's, And again, that's awesome. That is so
mhm.
awesome. But then when you think about your stuff, you're like, well, it's not that. But I have stuff I love. I have stuff that somebody else is saying, wow, that stuff's really cool. I wish I could get that. It's all your perspective. I'm grateful for everything I
Mhm.
have been able to get. So yeah, it's just collecting's a good time, and it's a great community. I'm glad everybody tuned in tonight. It's cool to see everybody here. Thanks a lot. Glad to share. It's cool meeting some of these people at OAX. If I'm at OAX the next time, come up, talk to me. I mean, just talk to me as a collector. That's what I am
At the end
first
of the
and
day, I
foremost.
think, yeah, we were all collectors, right? Most
It's
dealers I know are. I mean, yeah, no, I get it. I mean, that's why we're here. We love all of this, and
yep.
yeah. And Rich Danny
Thanks,
says
Nick.
the discussions are always good. And I should let everybody know Rich is actually doing our art picks in the CAF update this week, so he'll be joining me on Thursday for a very insightful conversation about the artworks posted to CAF last week. So that'll be fun. But
Yeah.
Todd, obviously, this is always a good time getting to hang out with with you. Usually we're doing something different, but today we got to learn about you as a collector, and we didn't
Yeah.
even really dive into the idea. We've you're like the third professor that we have in the chat. You're very knowledgeable. Derek, Crab is definitely at the top of our list of guys who seems to know just a little bit about everything. Marcus too, but
Yep.
you're always very knowledgeable in the chat, and I just want
One
you
of
to really
one of the
appreciate.
joys here is being the art detective, and you have nothing to go with, and you figure out what it is. I was a little frustrating recently. We did have a few pages that, I mean, I did everything. I reached out to people and everything, and I could not figure out what it was from, who did it. There was nothing on the page, just art.
Mhm.
And but a lot of that it sold, so someone knew. Someone knew there
They're
was
not gonna tell you
value in
either.
some of these pages, or they just like the art like I did. So,
Right.
but yeah, it's so fun to figure things out. And I'll give the little if you have art and it's not clearly marked, please take a pencil and write on the back of the page who it is and what it's from, because if you know it and it's not on the page when that sells, it's lost in the wind, and it'd be a shame to have a great page just out there flopping around and no one knows what it is, and it could be something really great. We see it a lot here. So I just recommend people do that. You're not going to hurt the art by taking a graphite pencil in the back real small and just writing what that page is, because it's important. So
Yeah. No, no. There was a guy at Heroes who came by with a page from the 50s and asked me if I knew what it was from. And of course, I'm not, because it's not my era at all. But it had nothing on it. No marks on the front of the page. No marks on the back. Nothing,
yep.
nothing at all. And it was gorgeous. I mean, the first panel on it was amazing. And so, but Michael Finn was there, so I told the guy, if I run into Michael, I'll show him the scan, and he didn't know what it was from either, but was very impressed by the page too. But still, he's like, but there's almost no way, even though it was like the chapter page. It actually had a title. I can't remember. It was like red. I read something or other, but either way, it even had stuff that could help you out. A chapter title,
Right.
and still he goes right into the GCD,
Yep.
starts pumping some keywords into it, and couldn't come up with anything. So yeah, I hear you. And I would, I mean, and gosh, how many reps or dealers in the 70s and 80s didn't mark the back, write something on the back, top back, for reference. Even, they put the
Yep.
price down, but they actually would write the artist and issue inker and put that on there. Some people might be a little, thinking that that's like totally inappropriate, but, do it in pencil and,
Yeah,
do it
you're not going to hurt
memorabilia.
the art if you do it in graphic pencil. Don't press down on it and make a big gouge in it or something. But it's good to have it identified, because it keeps it going as what it was,
Mhm.
the artist, the issue. So yeah.
Exactly. All right, man. Well, listen, I'm gonna call it a night.
Okay.
I, appreciate getting to this. I think we have a preview coming up in July. I don't know if you'll be a
Yep.
part of that
Yeah.
one or not, but
So,
hopefully you will
sometime
be.
in the near future. So I'll probably be there.
All right. Well,
We'll see if I make the cut.
I'm gonna put Alex's cap on right now and say, since you're still at the office, get back to work and finish that damn catalog.
Well, I got here early. I actually worked on it a little bit, so you got like some extra time for free out of me tonight. So I can't help myself.
All right, Todd. Well,
All
thank
right.
you for doing this. I appreciate it. Everybody else, thanks for
Yep.
hanging out with us this evening. You have a wonderful night, and we'll see you again real soon.